Hi, my name's Adrian Spence. I'm the artistic director for Camerata Pacifica, and I'm here with my friend and composer, David Bruce. You might see some background. We're in the midst of rehearsals for an opera. We're in London, wearing way too many clothes. So
we're at the Royal Opera House.
We're at the Royal Opera House.
And
this opera is...
It's The Firework Maker's Daughter, which has just been revived because it was done here a couple of years ago and toured around. Actually came to New York, but it's now come back for a sort of Christmas run for the whole of December, which is fun. And they're just in the last week of rehearsal.
So I was lucky enough to hear a little bit of the music because I'm going back to sunny California tomorrow. So and listening to that music, and then we're playing a piece of yours in January called Steampunk, and then you're writing a piece for us.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about all these things today. So I'm listening. I wanted to hear this today, and of the music of yours that I know, which is considered would you regard yourself as a prolific composer?
No, not really. No.
There seems to be a lot of material out there.
No, I think I think I could write less, but you know, it takes a while. It's an effort to get stuff out.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get it right. I think you're always balancing these things when you're writing. As you know, you're excited when you get a new offer, but it's always nice to have a little bit too much time so you can go away and to get it really right, and even put it aside for a couple of weeks. That's nice when you have that space, but it's a hard balance to get right, to be honest.
Do you regard yourself as a composer who gets played a lot?
I've had a big career in America, funnily enough. It's been I get a lot of opera done in the UK, but I'm still emerging, as they say here. Whereas in the States, I've had things have taken off a bit more. So it's a sort of, people always say, "Well, you're living in the States now," and it's just happened that way that things have taken off more.
Steampunk.
Yeah.
So I'm running with that. I'm very excited about this piece.
It's a fun piece. I mean, I think what happens is quite often, like the piece I've been writing at the moment for you. I start writing, I don't really have any idea of what it's going to be, and I only, as it develops, then the ideas start to sort of coalesce. Whereas with Steampunk, I think I really did have the title, and I thought I'm going to write a steam, because it came from the instrumentation, so that there was something about the horn and the bassoon, with all these, and a friend had just introduced me to the whole concept of steampunk, so I thought, hang on a minute, that really just seems like a steampunk group. And so that set me off on the train of thought to do the piece.
Acoustically, it is you capture. I don't know how one could capture the essence of steampunk, but I really think you have. We are all so looking forward to playing it, and there's going to be a few surprises, which I'm not going to tell anybody about, other than saying that my beard is being let go longer than I normally do. So we'll leave it at that.
Great.
And then you're writing a piece for us. So you're writing a piece for oboe, cello, harp, and percussion.
Yeah.
And so the reason I asked you to write for this group is I just can't think of Nick Daniel, Annie Asnavorian, Bridget Kibbe, and G.H. Chung. I mean, so those are four immense characters that you've got that you're having to write for.
Yeah.
Can you tell me anything about it, or is there any thoughts that you've got going on this yet? Because I know.
Yeah.
I asked you before, and the last time I asked you, but you said, "No, I haven't started yet."
Well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty far along now, but it is in that sort of slightly flux stage where it could things could change with it. So perhaps I'm a little wary to describe it in detail. It's like in 5 movements, and then it'll come out as a single movement by the end or something.
Yeah, but that's also a fun, I think for the Camerata audience. For me, that's a fun thing to know about you. I mean, you're going to compose in a different manner than everybody else, so you could be going full steam ahead with this, and we're meant to be receiving the parts in mid-January, right?
Yeah.
So a month from now, and you could be going full steam ahead, and then decide, no, I'm going to go this way.
Yeah, I guess so. And I think it probably will be in 5 movements. I'd be surprised. It's getting quite close to being there now, but it's only within the last week or two that is. So sometimes I feel really certain for about 3 days, and then it all changes.
And is it a musical idea that starts it? Is it a motivic, a harmonic, or is it an expression or an emotion?
I usually start with the instrumentation, and that gives me sort of ideas. This was actually a really challenging combination, because it's kind of the harp and the marimba are competing in a way. They're in the same sort of
Uh-huh.
space. They have the sort of full range,
Right.
and they're kind of harmonic instruments. And none of the instruments like fully blend. So
Right.
there was a sort of I actually wrote a whole load of different sketches before
Uh-huh.
and some of them I liked for half an hour. It seems to be you have to live with things for a while,
Right.
and then the ones that survive more than a week, then you start thinking, well, maybe that one's gonna
Right.
survive.
Well, I mean, that's why I asked you to write for this group of instruments, because listening to your other music, I went, David's going to be able to he's going to be able to do something with this unusual bunch of instruments.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, we will. So,
but what's been interesting, I think one thing I can say with certainty is that they've all come through with all of the things that I've kept have had this sort of tone of consolation. There's definitely a sense of weather about them as well, which is often, somebody told me once, and it really rang with me that there's a lot of weather in my music, he said, and I think that is true. There's wind and rain and things going on in it. But there was, throughout all of these pieces, there's a sort of consoling air somehow, which wasn't like I'm going to write a consoling piece. That's just what came out.
uh-huh.
I think something about the physicality of playing is always in my mind when I'm writing. I mean, I have most instruments around my house, and I do like sort of fiddling with them. I can't necessarily play them well, but you can get
Right.
a real sense of how things will come across, because if you play a high note, say if you pitch on a cello, then some of them will be sort of slightly muffly sounds, and some will be a real sort of percussive bang, and you need to know exactly where those are.
Right.
And over the years, I've sort of found the easiest way to know that is to actually have it, and then you can try it out yourself,
Right.
So I've usually, I find a friend who, like the French horn comes from an old school friend who I used to play with at school, and then he's had it sitting in his attic. And I was like, that French horn, do you mind if I?
Yeah.
So.
And then, of course, Bridget Kibbe was
Yeah.
the person who introduced me.
Yeah,
to you.
yeah. So I've worked with her on quite a few pieces over the years now.
Yeah.
She's always a joy to work with.
Yeah.
And I think that the first big piece I wrote for her was the solo harp piece, Caja de Música.
That's right.
And I kept saying, is this really possible? And she said, yeah, it's possible. And I think the piece is really on the verge of unplayable. It's really, really difficult. But I love plucked instruments. I think they're a real underused thing in the classical world. So I would find that my little niche. Mandolin's another thing I've written a lot for. And so that was a treat. That's a sort of no-brainer in a way. If Bridget's in the group, then it's going to be all right.
And then
and
Nick
the textures
Daniel?
come from that. Yeah, Nick, I met him years ago in England on a sort of composer's course, and I've always known about him. And he's a huge star and just an amazing player. And I think I went to see him just as I was starting this piece, and he did these such beautiful kind of delicate pianissimos that just where you hold your breath and you're hanging on every note.
Yeah.
And so there's some of that I think has filtered into the piece as well. It's quite a quiet piece altogether.
Yeah. So Steampunk, you've also rewritten part of that. Is that correct? Is that just what we were saying?
It was just the first movement. It's the actual opening is the same, but then I just sort of felt it did what it did a little too kind of simplistically, and I just wanted to kind of throw a bit more grit in it. So it's just tweaked a bit.
Yeah. I'm so aware of the fact that we can get to engage with the composers that we're working with now, and the fact that it's always there's this fluidity. There's always a work in progress, because I guess also once the piece must be very different from what you hear in your head and when it comes to life.
Absolutely, it's always a shock. Is in the way there's this thing that you, however much you think you kind of know what it is, and there's always a sort of a physicality within it and within the sound that surprises you. And
then the players, I guess, must have such an influence of it. They're so characterful.
I really like trying to leave space now. The more and more I try and write in a way that allows the players to bring their own thing to it. I think it's it's something that, you know, when I was a student, I would probably have really said, you know, the players were like my tools that, you know, they should just do what I've written on the notes, you know.
That'll get you a lot of confidence.
So I like trying to create the space for them a little bit, so that there's a bit of room for manoeuvre.
All right. Well, unless you've anything to add, I'll take this.
Great.
That work for you? So we'll bring you out. You're going to come out. You're going to come out for the premiere in April.
Yeah.
And then we got Steampunk in January, and so thank
Can't
you.
wait.
Merry Christmas.
Look forward to it.
Cheers.